lifetime of taking care of me, but I just figured I would touch on a few memories. If you start from the beginning of my story, my mother somehow was able to leave a failed marriage and a husband who was drinking and get me out of that situation.
And threw him out.
And for a few years there, before Mike came along, it was my mother and me against the world. It was just the two of us. And, having a son now, which I think Felix is just about the same age that I would have been when my parents split. I have a little bit more of a grasp on how difficult that must have been, but I still can't even fathom, how difficult what kind of a hardship that would have been for you to do that. So it's an incredibly strong thing for you to be able to do. I guess that touches back on what, Cousin Robert's saying about the Kazi women. So thank you for getting me out of that situation and giving me a better life. And thank you to Mike for that as well. I remember so after they split, we lived alone in Churn House on 90th Street, which was a new building at the time. And I obviously don't remember everything from those days, but I remember surprising a lot from those days. I really very fond memories. And, I remember once, my mother was the 70s. My mother used to have these women's live meetings in the living room. And she called them women's groups. And I remember I was supposed to be in bed, and I would sneak out of bed. And somehow it was a duplex. So I would come at the top of the stairs, and I would look around, and there would be all these women in a circle discussing women's living in the 70s. And I think it was the women's movement, yeah. So I got what they were talking about. Obviously for me it wasn't that exciting. I figured it was more exciting back in bed, so I went back to bed and hang out, or let you guys have your meeting. But I was certainly old enough that had an impression of me that it impressed on me, the power of women's empowerment, and that has always stayed with me. So I think that's an important thing that you probably didn't realize I took from that then. I remember I was probably maybe 10 years old. I remember my mom playing catch with me. Like we were at Shelter Island, and she could totally catch. You put it down, she could totally catch a hard ball, and she had an arm on her too. She would whip it back. It was unbelievable. We had great times camping as a family. Mike, my mother, and Alex and I. Another lesson I learned. I'm just kind of bouncing around here. But once in elementary school, I remember I was with Alex and my mother in the dining room, and I was imitating a girl in my class. I don't know why. I was just being a dumb kid. And because she had a funny way of walking, and she had I was making a weird face because she had an overbite. And I was like, Alex, who am I pretending to be? Because we went to the same school, so he would have known her or whatever. And I guess he couldn't guess. And when I said, oh, this girl Kelly, because she looks like this, and my mother stopped in her tracks, and she looked at me and was like, don't ever make fun of someone because of the way they look. Because of the way they're born. That's not right. And I'm sure you would never remember that. But I probably at the time laughed it off. I was like, yeah, whatever. But it stayed with me. And it's just another one of those fleeting moments that just lasts with me forever. So thank you all. I don't want to touch me. It does. What else here? So, bigger picture. So, I remember I decided to move to California at that point in time. So I said to my mom, I called her on the phone, and I was like, Mom, I'm thinking about moving to California. And she says to me, I remember her first words is, oh God, if you move to California, you'll meet someone and I'll never meet my grandchildren. I'll never meet my grandchildren. So, obviously, that's not the case. Grandchildren are here. Grandchild's here. Not expecting it so emotional, really didn't. But, this is why I want to step down. So, Mom, thank you for just teaching me to have a zest for life, because you appreciate everything and everyone, and you love all of us so much. So, thank you very much.